Attempted arrest of a Venezuelan illegal migrant in Minneapolis. DHS saying, quote, fearing for his life and safety as he was being ambushed by 3 individuals. The officer fired defensive shots to defend his life. The initial subject was shot in the leg. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said in a statement that state investigators were at the scene and that, quote, I know you're angry. I'm angry. What Donald Trump wants is violence in the streets.
Well, that is a reporter talking about another ICE-involved shooting. In case you haven't caught that last evening, up in Minnesota, where else there was a scuffle. ICE was trying to arrest an alleged criminal. Apparently, he was then ambushed by a couple of criminals' friends. He goes and gets a shovel and starts beating up on the officer, and the officer shoots him in the leg. The officer, at least as of this reporting, is in the hospital. I know that the victim was in the hospital. Well, the perp was in the hospital as well. So this is the second one. Welcome into Wake Up, Missouri. It seems like just another day in Minnesota with riots in the streets and flash guns going off and frozen bottles being thrown at ICE officers. It's just another day in the park. Welcome in. Stephanie, it's amazing to see. This has become normalized in those parts.
It has.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting? We've talked a lot about sort of the arsonist become firefighter syndrome, where the Democrats cause inflation, then they gripe that Donald Trump is presiding over unaffordability, right? And they're going to rescue. Now, remember when Mayor Fry said this, right after he said to ICE, get the F out. This is what he said just a week ago.
We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And he and Tim Walz have fomented all of this anger and unrest and chaos, accusing ICE of causing the problem when it's just resistors that are causing the problem. And then he says this yesterday. Isn't this interesting after the shooting? Huh.
For those that have peacefully protested, I applaud you. For those that are taking the bait, you are not helping, and you are not helping the undocumented immigrants in our city.
And this.
Anyone that is taking the bait tonight, stop. That is not helpful. Go home.
Well, maybe thou dost ask for too much protest. It's a little variation on the Shakespeare there.
Maybe they're having some flashbacks to 2020 and the George Floyd protests and $500 million in damage.
You got that right, John Marsh. And look, these people can't have it both ways. They can't create this notion that the ICE agents simply trying to enforce the immigration laws are fascists, they're Nazis, they're coming into our communities and destroying us and ripping us apart. When all the ICE officers are doing are standing there getting pummeled with things, their cars getting rammed into, a woman, whether she was fleeing or purposely trying to ram into him, a disruptor, an agitator, a leader of the resistance moving, blocking their motion, their movements, unequivocally. If you think that she was not in violation of the law, 573-874-9390, 1-800-529-5572. Let me know. I know we have mental health services that are lacking, but we'll find somewhere for you. You can't deny. The guy, by the way, the officer who shot, sadly, she was shot. It was killed. Sad that she led to her own death because of her actions. It's sad that she did that. Sometimes our actions have consequences. It's a shame that it was this extreme of a consequence, but stuff happens. When you mess around, you find out. That's what happens. When you break the law and you mess around with law enforcement, it's an the rules are the rules.
And the disruption is massive. I mean, they closed schools. There are businesses that are closed. They said people are essentially on both sides are confined to their places of work or places of business because the street or their homes, because the streets just aren't safe on either if you're on either side. So it's a true mess. And so I don't think he had any choice but to kind of walk back his previous statements because they're just in disarray.
You know this guy?
Instead of conducting an impartial investigation so we can hold accountable the officer responsible for Renee's death, the Trump administration is devoting the full power of the federal government to finding an excuse to attack the victim and her family.
Yeah, well, Tim, come on down, baby. Come on down. You sit in this studio and you tell me I'm attacking the victim. I'm saying the victim behaved in a way that led to her injury and demise. It's a shame, Governor Idiot Walz. You're an absolute joke, a buffoon, and it is coming just bright as day to anyone who wants to look at this. Now, there's some YouGov polling out that is just astounding to me. I'm hoping this is some radical left-wing. YouGov tends to be a leftist polling organization.
Aren't all of the...
Yeah. Saying that most of the people that they polled, a majority of folks said that, ICE was responsible for her death, that she was, that was unnecessary, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary when my child climbs a tree and I told her not to or him not to, and he or she falls out and breaks their leg. You could say it was unnecessary, but it wasn't the tree's fault. It wasn't my fault for telling them not to get up in the tree. They committed, there was an error of commission, and errors of commission have consequences. This is just so plain.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's so many people, Stephanie, it's almost like stare at the ceiling time. And how can people in totality look at this and say that this ICE officer murdered her? The last time I checked, murder means a willful act of commission on the part of one towards the other, either with planning and intention murder, one, or as we saw the other day, the drive-by shooting and the poor young girl was shot as in a collateral damage. That's a different story.
What's the effect? Oh, I'm going to get it wrong. What's the effect where you look at the image and you
Rorschach.
Yes.
This is the ultimate Rorschach.
I think so. I mean, because you have people who are speeding up the video, you have people who are slowing down the video, you have people who are just focused on like the few seconds. They're, some people have watched the full video, and I think people are watching the version of that video and telling themselves what they want to tell themselves.
That's right.
They're seeing what they want to see.
We did a Rorschach off air just a few days ago, and I splattered this stuff on the paper. Remember that stuff? And remember, I saw stamps. You saw a gavel. John saw a reporter's, microphone. Drake saw Sydney Sweeney. It's amazing. All he can do is shake his head.
No, that was pretty good. That was pretty good, Randy.
So, I don't know. You're right. It is the ultimate Rorschach. How can you look at the same set of facts and come up with, it's not a matter of, I'm not sure if they were like strawberry blonde or blonde or, maybe, was it like dark jet black hair or dark brown hair? This is like, I saw Mars and you saw Pluto. It's so different. Unbelievable.
I mean, it goes back to what your daughter said over the weekend is like we're living in two different Americas, and, the two different Americas right now are seeing things through very different glasses.
And you remember, that makes me think of our greatest generation, who sadly now there are very few left, but, they are so much a part of the honor flights, and there will be an honor flight radiothon coming up in Springfield here in March, I believe. But you think about those and everyone who served, the Vietnam War, the Korean War. My dad and Helene's dad, the father-in-law, served in that. And you think about if there isn't a tear streaming down their face, whether they're left or right, whether they're currently Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever. Because I've talked to some of these people, and they say, we fought for the ability for us to have spirited debate, to have truly peaceful protests with people, holding signs and walking in circles, chanting. That's fine. But this, where there's no respect for authority, you just do what you want to do because I disagree with the current administration policy. I don't know. This is crazy. Well, we have some other news going on. By the way, we're going to be talking with Don Mayhew later on in the program in the 7 o'clock hour. He's a representative who's sponsored that autonomous driving bill, autonomous car bill.
And they had a committee hearing this week on it, and I think it brought up some interesting perspectives that I don't think we had I had contemplated before, more, it was always about me. Like, would I get in a car? Oh my gosh, can I let go of control? But then I think some of the folks who showed up to testify in favor were like, it would provide certain people independence that don't have it now, whether you're someone who's older and not supposed to be driving yourself and you need to get to doctor's appointments, and right now, your adult children have to drive you everywhere, whether you have some sort of disability. I think they mentioned blindness.
I think there was a blind woman who testified. What a change.
Right. And so I think, I'm interested to hear more what he heard from the citizens at the committee about why Missouri should move toward regulating and authorizing autonomous vehicles.
So, yeah, that was an interesting perspective, and one that I really hadn't thought of as a major thrust for this. But I mean, if not for no other reason, to enable people to have more access to the service they need, medical services, any service, depending on the level of disability and how often you need it. I mean, it could be really an amazing thing.
Yeah, and I think for so many people, I mean, independence is so important for folks. And I hadn't really thought about that perspective, and I think it came through pretty strong earlier this week.
It's just the idea of, I think abstract-wise, you think about the safety of it all. Like, oh, man, are these things safe?
But the data shows.
The data's pretty good.
Yeah, I talked to a friend yesterday who said her son just got a car that was complete driverless technology, and she went for a ride in it and was pretty shook initially, and then by the end of the ride said, wow, this is on the money.
What does I use the sort of quasi-auto drive a little bit, driving to the governor's prayer breakfast, and we're going to recap some of his things from the previous day's Secretary of the State speech as well this morning. But I was thinking in my mind, how does it know when to follow the curve? Is it following the white lines or the dotted line in the middle? Are there other cues along the road? How does it know?
It's sneaky.
Well, as Gary likes to say, I don't know. Back with the Daily DC Rundown in a moment.
It's Wake Up. in our view, should focus on how to address the American security concerns, while at the same time respecting the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark.
Well, that is Denmark's foreign minister. Here's Stephanie with the Daily DC Rundown.
He still says that we have a fundamental disagreement. They really, so we sent a delegation over there. I think VP Vance and Secretary of State Rubio were both over there with a meeting. This guy Rasmussen says any ideas that don't respect Denmark's territorial integrity and Greenland's right to self-determination are totally unacceptable. But Trump's still saying that NATO would be strengthened by U.S. control of Greenland. We are still very far apart on this issue, Randy.
Yeah, I don't know. He says there's a way that we can ensure America's national security without compromising their ownership.
In the wake of all of this rampant fraud that we've seen lately, Trump announced yesterday that the State Department is pausing immigrant visas from approximately 75 countries starting January 21st. Again, it's just a pause. The countries include Brazil, Russia, and Somalia. The reasoning for pausing the visas is that these folks rely too heavily on public assistance. Short-term tourist visas and business visas are not affected. It's likely that a lot of spousal and family visas will be impacted. That's a big deal, Randy. And we don't really know. I don't think we know how long the pause is going to be.
You know, wasn't it initially like 12 or 13 countries? Now it's 75, right?
75.
Yeah. Wow.
We're also hearing more about what's going on in Iran. SpaceX has made Starlink free for Iranian users after we've heard for how long have they had their internet cut off.
Yeah.
I think they were finally allowing outgoing international calls. We have at least reports of at least 2,500 reported dead. Trump late yesterday said that the killing has actually stopped in Iran, that the country is not executing protesters. But so earlier, oil prices spiked earlier in the day and then fell after these remarks from Trump's. Market sees Trump's remarks as, an indication that perhaps we aren't going to do any military action. But tensions are still pretty high. Iran has closed its airspace to commercial traffic. And I think previously this week, the U.S. government said, get out of there.
Yeah, he's trying to take a little bit of credit for the fact that there is allegedly some stand down on the part of the Iranian government.
Yeah, this is the D.C. rundown, but we're talking a lot about international matters, and that's what D.C. is focused on right now, and that includes Venezuela. Trump has a big meeting today with Machado. She is the opposition leader there in Venezuela. Trump's been backing her rival, Rodriguez. But what is this really all about? And I think Vice President Vance said it, right? Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. We've already done one sale worth $500 million. But it's going to be an awkward meeting because, it's no secret that Trump is not supporting this gal who's going to be in the White House today.
It's interesting. In the election, there was a guy that won, but Maduro stayed in power.
Right.
And the guy that won, Gutierrez, I think, Gonzalez, I don't know.
Something.
And but apparently she was sort of a supporter of that flank of opposition. But yet, right after the whole attack and the apprehension, Trump said she just didn't have enough support. So it's an interesting, and she's the one that wanted to give him the Nobel Prize.
Well, there's been a lot of awkward meetings between foreign leaders and Trump. So we'll have our eyes on that and have a recap tomorrow. But Trump did secure a win yesterday in the Senate. Two folks flipped. That includes Josh Hawley and Todd Young to defeat this resolution that would have limited his powers to use military operations in Venezuela. They're citing the reason that they changed their vote is that they have secured assurances from Secretary of State Marco Rubio that U.S. troops aren't in Venezuela. So, but that's a big deal, and we've seen Trump be really frustrated about that. And I didn't think we were going to see any flips on that.
J.D. Vance had to do the tying vote, right? Break the vote.
Right.
I think he broke the tie. Yeah.
We also got a big Supreme Court case decision yesterday about who can sue over election laws, and I think we're going to get a guest on about that.
That would
tomorrow.
be cool. Yeah. That's a big deal. That's about standing, right?
In Illinois.
Right. Well, autonomous cars and Representative Don Mayhew when we come back.
I think just local news is like the most important stuff to me, even though it's kind of like bad stuff going on around me, but it's the most relevant to me.
Belief is simple. Smaller government equals better government. Not because it does less, but because it does what matters. It focuses on its core functions and how best serve Missourians without overpromising and without overspending. It means discipline and not excess, planning, not wishful spending, and respect for every dollar Missouri families entrust us with.
Well, that was Governor Mike Kehoe on Tuesday at his State of the State address. We talked with him yesterday on Wake Up Missouri, and he is determined that we can balance, well, he and the legislature can balance the budget and grow the state, encourage in-migration. He talked in his address about the stagnant population growth. It's a little bit, but not near what it should be. Nothing really to speak about. But yet, I think he said there were 3,400 new budget line items added since 2022. I believe that was the number. Bad news there. And he says we're going to need to do some belt tightening. And John Marsh, I don't think there was one person we talked to. I don't think Representative David Tyson Smith was disagreed with the fact that some fiscal restraint is in order this session.
Yeah, I think the lawmakers have gotten the message, judging from the ones we talked to yesterday at the governor's prayer breakfast, from including David Tyson Smith on the other side of the aisle, that when the governor talks about $600 million in budget cuts for the next fiscal year state budget, he wasn't kidding.
No. And yet at the same time asking the question, well, how? Because people were talking about that. I think Senator Mike Bernskoetter was the most overt about it when I asked, and we asked everyone, how does it square when you guys in your conference wanted to cut property taxes, real property taxes, well, property tax reform, to be fair, but I think that means cuts. And at the same time, the governor wants to cut income tax. How are you going to pay the bills? And I think he was pretty... Senator Bernskoetter was like, I don't think that's going to happen. Not both. I don't know. The governor at the same time was saying that we, in his address, said that there's things that aren't being taxed that should be. He said, we called it the 21st century tax structure. We're still living back in the old days, right? Where he talked about digital tech bros aren't paying they're making bank on our digital use of all kinds of platforms and everything. Maybe that should be taxed. You pay tax now when you do your online shopping, right, Stephanie?
Yeah.
Formerly, just a few years ago, you should. It was in law that you should voluntarily pay the tax, but I don't know whether it was enforced, but I don't think most people did. And now it's calculated. It's computed. Retailers are supposed to do that. I think most of them do. But I think it goes beyond that now, right? Does that mean if you sign up for an app and you pay $5.99 for an app that you're going to pay, some tax surcharge on that? I don't know. Or your license on your Microsoft Office, or
maybe,
yeah. Or your AI, you use an AI enterprise, right, with your business?
I do. I pay for several AI services and several subscription services.
Yeah.
I have legal research software.
Yeah. You think of all those things. If those start getting taxed, I don't think the tech bros are going to absorb those taxes and just voluntarily pay them without passing them down.
They're definitely going to be paid by us. That's how, we interviewed Senator Trent yesterday, and he said, that's all the taxes are ultimately paid by us, right?
Yeah, right.
You have a doctor's office. I have a law office, right? If suddenly we're paying if we're charging tax to people on those services, the clients are going to pay that, right? The customers are going to pay that.
Well, someone's got to pay it, and whether it's shared. Well, like the tariffs. Initially, the tariffs were shared a little bit by certainly the distributors and manufacturers overseas.
Yeah, but I think sales tax is different. We like you said, we get it.
Right. You
we pay it on and we pay it on our groceries, and we pay it on everything else. It's pretty standard that you just see the tax line item on the invoice and you pay it.
Well, all the debate at the Capitol and the issues that were on the ballot about the use tax, when we had that whole debate and discussion in Missouri, and that revolved around, if you buy online out of state, you're still going to owe the 4% sales tax to the state of Missouri when your item gets here from Amazon or wherever else.
Right. So, one way or another, you got to pay the bills. But are they? I think it's incumbent on the legislature to reduce the bills that need to be paid, or at least the amount of them. Joining us now, Representative Don Mayhew, District 124, serving Pulaski and Miller counties. Welcome into the program. So you wanted me to drive my car but not have my hands on the wheel, huh, Don?
Well, actually, even better than that, you can take a nap in the back seat.
Oh, man. Now, this is now, wait. It does hold a lot of sway when a guy who knows a little bit about highways, a licensed survey and engineer expert and small engineering and surveying company owner, when you say that, you must have a fair amount of confidence of the safety of these vehicles.
Well, so as it turns out, I was in Phoenix, Arizona, and I took a ride on one of these. It's a company by the name of Waymo that has that particular one. But it was amazing. Of course, we all know that, computer technology, AI is just advancing by leaps and bounds, and the safety of these things is incredible. Basically, you and I, we have 2 eyes and 2 ears, and 2 rear view mirrors, and that's pretty much our sensors when it comes to, driving our cars. Well, these things have so many sensors on them. They're tracking targets, every single moving target within its range, and that's something that we can't even do as humans. It's incredible how well these things work.
What are they, Don? What are they queuing off of? Is it the lines on the side of the road? Are there some beacons that we don't see that are put out when they build a road? How do they know where to go?
The exact same stuff that you and I use. So it's the advancement in camera technology, but they also use what's called LiDAR, which is laser ranging and distancing technology. We use it to draw topographic maps in the engineering world. You fly a little drone and it has a LiDAR sensor on it, and it's just sending pulses of laser beam that you can't see. It's in a range where you can't see it anyway. And it bounces off that target, and it can measure that distance, but it also can use that technology to determine how fast that target is moving. It also has radar on it, but it also has cameras on it. I would liken it to what they do with these new GM trucks. They, there's cameras all the way around on it, and then it does a mosaic and allows you to be able to look on your screen and see an aerial view, even though there's not a camera there, an aerial view of your truck and everything around it.
Wow.
Similar kind of technology. There's cameras all the way around on this. And we've all seen the Google Map, vehicle driving with the rotary camera that's running. These things have one of those also.
Wow.
So it's collecting all of this data and doing this mapping in real time.
Now, you had a hearing on the legislation earlier this week, and an issue came up that I hadn't fully contemplated, and we're getting some text about it. We mentioned it this morning, and we've got a text from a listener saying, my wife is blind due to MS, and we're really excited about autonomous driving. You had some folks show up and say, this provides folks who otherwise aren't able to drive themselves some independence and the ability to get from point A to point B. Tell us about that information you learned.
So from a mobility standpoint and an accessibility standpoint, this is certainly going to be a boon for those folks. The reality is that it's a robot Uber. I mean, that's the best way I could describe it, except without the language barriers and those kind of things that you frequently run into. The other thing is when you use the app on your phone, and you tell it to come pick you up. If it says it's going to be there in 3 minutes, you can count on it being there in 3 minutes. It is, there's no estimations or anything like that because it's already done the calculation and it knows what the traffic looks like on the route. And I mean, it pulls up, if you're at the airport, for instance, it'll pull up right exactly in front of you. So for those folks who are, in need of transportation and they're having to rely on friends and relatives and things like that. And let's face it, in the suburb areas, and Ubers are, they work, but I mean, there's always a challenge because that's a human driver that has all the problems that human drivers have. As far as reading maps and getting there, and, let's face it, Google Maps sometimes doesn't always do the trick. But with these, there's no real safety consideration. Uber has gone to great lengths, and I think Lyft too, and has to go through a lot of trouble to make sure their drivers are safe. But then it's still not 100%. But you're never going to get robbed by a Waymo driver. Well, I mean, the fee might approach that point, but in the case of Phoenix, the Waymo was cheaper than an Uber.
Well, but I think, John, recently we had the problem with the Waymos in, I believe it was San Francisco, when they had a power outage or an internet outage, and they were just sitting around stalled, robotically asking, like the old cartoon, which way do I go? Which way do I go? So what happens then?
And so in testimony, that question was asked. And so San Francisco was a rare case. And yes, certainly any technology can have a problem. But what those machines do is they fail to the side of the road to a safe condition. And that might even include them, pulling into a parking lot and just parking. But in that particular case, what happened was the street lights all shut down. They went to a flashing red condition. And so my understanding was that there's human interaction whenever there's a problem like that. There's a war room with a bunch of people with computer terminals, and when the Waymo basically phones home in order to figure out what to do, then a human intervenes. Well, in their particular case, they can, and then happened in San Francisco, they either come and get the person, in a different vehicle, or in some cases they can turn over driver control back to the human occupant if that's an option.
Yeah. Wow.
But with that, all of the traffic lights went to a flashing red condition, and all of them, asked for help all at the same time. So it wasn't that the machine couldn't operate; it was that it overwhelmed the human interaction.
Yeah. Well,
and so that was solved fairly quickly. So it made news, but it really wasn't as big a deal as they let on. So.
Well, this is all interesting stuff, and I guess, is it going to make it out of committee, and is Speaker Patterson on board?
I think everybody's on board.
Yeah.
It's for sure is one of our more fun bills that we do. I've had more questions about this than just about anything else I've ever done, except for renaming I-70, of course, which I got a few questions on that one. But
we'll have to see.
I think we're going to see it get on the floor. So
it'll be interesting. We're getting some folks talking about, just some more technology, looking at what we're doing, know what we're doing, eyes from the sky. I think it's a reality. Don, thank you for being with us. We'll follow this as it progresses through the assembly.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Have a good morning.
Hey, you too. Thanks very much. When we come up, Oprah says she just can't help it. She just can't help it. She went off her GLP-1 and put on weight. Back with that.
It's Wake
eating. I was standing there with all the food noise, what I ate, what I should eat, how many calories was that, how long is it going to take. I thought that was because of me and my fault. Yeah. Now I understand that if you carry the obesity gene, if that is what you have, that is what makes you overeat. You don't overeat and become obese. Right. Obesity causes you to overeat. Right. Obesity causes you to have all of that food noise. And what the GLP-1s have done for me, and I know a number of other people, is to quiet that noise. Yeah.
Well, Oprah needs to do a little more medical research.
Is there such thing as a fat gene?
An obesity gene. But there are mutations in certain genes, and probably between, low single digits. Let's say 1 to 3% of individuals may suffer from an actual identifiable genetic chromosomal problem, gene problem, that would predispose them to obesity, and that happens very early, usually early in life.
Like so this the gene is not that I have that says I love pizza. This is not the kind.
Yeah, it doesn't suddenly. It's not like the stealth gene that just jumps out at us at age 25 or 30. That doesn't happen, or earlier these days. And if you think about it logically, we're talking about GLP-1s, the semaglutide, that's Ozempic and Wegovy, and the tirzepatide, that is Mounjaro and Zepbound. Those do, in fact, turn down some of the food noise, and we know that there's a gut-brain connection and a satiation connection. However, if this really was a purely genetic problem, it would be hard to imagine that some mutation has just spread like wildfire in the last 20, 25 years, and all of a sudden obesity rates have doubled, right? If this was really a genetic problem, you wouldn't expect to see that. So there certainly is. Look, there is a nature component to this, putting aside those who have the rare identifiable gene problems. But the way we were reared in our mom's womb has a lot to do with it. Women who start pregnancy heavier or put on weight, we know that their children are their offspring, their normal genes, if you will, are a little bit triggered, and to make them have a tendency towards obesity and diabetes, for instance. So what happens inside mama's womb can affect you genetically. That doesn't mean that you are just guaranteed. It's just inevitably a reality that you're going to be obese. Here's the deal. We have a hormone called leptin. And leptin is sort of the fullness hormone, right? And it's actually put out by fat cells. So we're really sort of engineered well. God did a good job on this, like on most things. Well, everything, in fact. And then we went and screwed it up. It was eating that apple, darn it. But the fat cells create leptin. Leptin goes to the brain. We have leptin receptors, and it tells us, hey, I'm feeling pretty full. Stop. Obesity, as you get this ball rolling, leptin you become resistant to it. So this becomes a vicious cycle of genetics, nature, nurture. Bottom line is, if you're on a GLP-1, please, please, please use that as an opportunity to rewire your brain to become more leptin sensitive. We'll talk about this in the coming days on Make Missouri Healthy Again.
Greenland, whether they like it or not.
Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell.
I'm passing on this race with zero sadness and zero regret. I ran for the job to do the job.
The Zimmer News Team.
And thank God President Trump and the DOJ are now on the scene.
And now introducing your host, Randy Tobler.
To get to an answer, and I'm trying to test, frankly, your veracity as a medical professional and as a scientist. Can men get pregnant?
I think you're also conflating
This is extraordinary.
male with...
No, I'm not conflating male and female. They're two different things. There's biological men and there's biological women. And I want to know, can men get pregnant?
What you were talking about is biological...
You're not going to answer my question. it sounds like.
Biological males.
This isn't hard, doctor. Can men get pregnant? Yes or no?
I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you that is not coming from a place of trying to be polarized and push.
I'm not trying to be polarizing. I'm trying to ask. I think it is extraordinary that we are here in a hearing about science and about women. And for the record, it's women who get pregnant, not men. We are here about the safety of women and science that shows that this abortion drug causes adverse health events in 11% of cases. That's 22 times greater than the FDA label. Another fact you haven't acknowledged.
Well, that was Josh Hawley, who asked about 13 times, I believe. It was a dozen or a baker's dozen in hearing yesterday on the on this abortion pill, because there's some studies that show that minor complications happen up to 10% of the time. Major ones probably less than that. And of course, it's a back and forth. I have my feelings about that. You know how those are. I think it's a shame that women want to terminate the young baby inside of them, the preborn human. But that aside, this whole issue then, it raised this issue, and in the context of the Supreme Court hearings on men in women's sports, men acting like girls or transitioning to girls, sex-changed men. I think that's the term we should use it. They are sex changed, or men who wear dresses who are not yet sex changed, competing in girls with girls. So in that context, this came up, and this is an OBGYN, Dr. Nisha Verma. She would not answer the question. And finally, I mean, she equivocated some more.
Polarizing, that is truth. It is also, by the way, the United States Constitution, which offers unique protections to women in a variety of circumstances as women. And your refusal to recognize women as women and men as men is deeply corrosive to science, to public trust, and yes, to constitutional protections for women as women. And I think it's extraordinary that you would sit here and advance a political agenda that has been thoroughly discredited and rejected by the American people in this forum. And I'm glad we had this exchange, because it is exceptionally clarifying. It is also in many ways quite depressing. I see that my time is nearly expired.
Well, she just, he talked over and he wouldn't let her completely answer, but the answers were continually, let's have a conversation. You don't understand. It's complex. I take care of people who identify as well. She just wouldn't answer the question. If you don't have a uterus, you can't have a baby. Now, they have done uterine transplants. I'm not aware that one's resulted in a pregnancy yet, but who knows in this crazy world. We'll ask Brian Hauswirth, who is our intrepid reporter and, of course, the head of the Zimmer News team and here in Columbia. Now, Brian Hauswirth,
it's good to see you.
Can men get pregnant?
Obviously, no. I mean, yeah,
this is so clear, right? And I think the issue here is, can you say, if you say you are something you are not, does the law need to recognize that? In other words, when DEI was rampant in employment, we sort of joked about it, but not really. I, as an older white guy, want to get a job. Mm-hmm. So DEI is raging in whatever company I want to get a job. Why can't I, if what the left says is true, why can't I say, I'm a 20-year-old black woman. I need a job. You need to recognize that, because that's the way I identify. And you could call it absurd, but is it really? I mean, we're talking about facts. You deal in facts.
Yeah, and I don't. I'll defer on the policy issues.
You always do that, Brian. I keep trying.
But on the age, I mean, they can't. You have to keep the same age. You might, in terms of if you said you were 20 years old.
Why? I feel chronologically young. We routinely in the office we do a calculator on the coronary age of a person based on testing. Your coronary arteries may be older or younger than you based on testing. I'm kidding you here, but you know,
I do.
I mean,
I understand what you're
I'm
saying.
arguing the absurd to make a point. I mean, we live in a time when there's this like relativism that it's all about what I think and what I think is right. So I'm going to take out an ICE agent. I'm going to be a girl when I'm a man. Crazy.
And one of the other thing about the doctor that was testifying is she it was about a dozen times she would not answer the question. Right. So it was.
So yesterday I get the Amber Alert. We're sitting in the office. We get Amber Alerts a little after. I think it was afternoon, wasn't it? After lunch sometime.
It wouldn't have been an Amber Alert. It would have been an alert on your phone.
Well, we got an alert on the phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It gets complicated.
It's a funny notification.
Yes,
you know it when you see it or hear it.
Yes.
And so that was about something in Colombia, another standoff. What happened?
It was. We actually had 3 incidents in Colombia yesterday, but this was by far the biggest one. And I was out there at the site yesterday, Randy, and I was out at Blue Ridge and Parker. So here's the latest information, and I have it up as well at 939theeagle.com. They all started with a suspect who allegedly had a domestic dispute with a woman. They were arguing about who should leave the house. And the suspect, who's identified as Travis Dean Peterson of Colombia, 44 years old, allegedly pointed a loaded gun to the woman's head, threatened her, and then fired a shot at the ground before barricading himself in a house. Now, police responded immediately. He's accused of threatening to shoot the Columbia police officers and Boone County Sheriff's deputies if they came inside his house. He's also accused of threatening to kill his girlfriend at the time. This is all outlined. She allegedly has some of this on tape as well, according to court documents. There was a 4-hour standoff. Myself and all the television stations, you can see some photos at 939theeagle.com. We were on the hill at Albert Oakland Park looking down. Hard to see, but it was so heavily wooded, but it shut the whole area down in that area. People could not get to their homes. There were schools. They weren't locked down, quote unquote, but they were in secure mode. They were all but locked down.
What's the difference?
It's a technical thing. A secure mode means students stay inside. A regular day continues, according to Michelle Baumstark. A lockdown means somebody thinks somebody's actually going to get into school. This guy was not going to be able to get in any school. He had probably 100 police officers out there, but that's what happened.
Did you say a secure what?
It's called a secure mode, is what the...
Wonder how many Board of Education meetings they had to differentiate between a secure mode and a lockdown.
Yeah, but Michelle Baumstark said there is a difference, so I'm just quoting them on that. But the suspect there was a standoff, and, finally at about 1:30 yesterday afternoon, talked to Colin Imhoff, who was the spokesman at the scene, and he said that the suspect was taken into custody without incident.
Good.
He is charged multiple felonies at this time in domestic assault, armed criminal action, resisting arrest, other things as well. We don't have a mugshot of him as of yet.
In an instance like this, do they have like a psychological expert that then talks to the person, or how did they take him in without more violence? That's it. They should be commended for that, right?
They have negotiating teams, but as far as who was specifically down the hill, we didn't get that in.
But there are experts that are specialized in
yes, there would be. They have negotiators. They have the SWAT team down there. They had ambulances in case somebody would have been shot. I mean, it's what they're there for, or injured. I'm sure they took him to a hospital, but he does have a criminal record, but it is not, as far as I can tell, it is not in Missouri. I have this up at 939theeagle.com. Criminal history out of state, domestic-related offenses, exhibiting firearms, threatening crimes with intent to terrorize. But this all started with some sort of a domestic dispute. And the police did a fine job. As that was going on, I saw a lot of chaos. A couple police officers sped out of there. There was another high-speed pursuit on the other side of town down State Farm Parkway, and that was a guy who's wanted for probation warrants that he's likely going back to prison, and he's hit somebody during his chase at State Farm Parkway in Nifong. Then we had another chase last night in Columbia, some stolen vehicle, a guy driving without a license, allegedly. He hit a couple of cars up near Fredericton as well. So just chaos yesterday in Columbia, in Boone County, and I covered as best I can. We just can't have the whole newscast being crime, but this morning it's a lot of crime.
Holy cow!
But that
so
is
this first guy though with the
Yep.
standoff, he'd had an anger management issue in the past, right? What'd you say? 2 or 3 priors were threatening and terrorism and stuff like that
in other states.
Okay, and he'd been convicted in other states.
Yes. And that's based on the court documents, but I don't see what states they are. CaseNet, we're way ahead of the game of these other states, so I can't tell exactly what they are. But that's outlined in that's outlined in the court documents. Domestic related. Now, it may be that the woman that he was in it was his girlfriend. According to court documents, she may not have known that he had these issues. I mean, if she wouldn't have access to the court documents, but he is jailed without bond, and he again allegedly threatened to kill her, put a gun to her head, and then they had to. Nobody could get to their homes for 4 hours.
That'll be life changing for her to have an experience like that. I mean, that is just traumatic, and that's sad. Stephanie, when someone, so he'll be prosecuted. When that prosecution, comes around, let's say he gets convicted of whatever crime. Are previous convictions in other states considered, or is that only Missouri prosecutions?
I don't know.
If Jen Bukowski's listening, we're going to ask her.
I
don't
would
know.
say.
What do you think?
Re-ask the question.
Well, okay. So I'm the judge, and I'm doing the sentence, and the prosecutor says, "Yeah, hey, this guy not only did he do this incident, but he did this in Illinois and Indiana, wherever the states were." Does that factor in the prior history?
It does.
That factor into sentencing?
It factors into sentencing.
Does it factor into the trial?
They can't bring that up in the trial in front of the jury, but they do. They do.
Why not?
That gets into. It's a complicated issue.
Oh, we need to change that law.
Judge Devine or Judge Jacobs could be a good one to talk about that.
Maybe we'll do that. Yeah.
But they can't. They can't do that. But no, his history is outlined in there. But I don't know if he's recently moved to the area. Again, there's a lot of stuff we don't know about this Travis Peterson there. But again, he does have that. But they look at that when they set bond. They will mention their criminal history on
bond. What about sentencing? Ultimate sentencing?
Well, he's got to go to trial and stuff before we get that. But they will take into effect his criminal history. Randy, one other quick note: we got a wreck right now, westbound Highway 54, heavily traveled area between Holt Summit and Jeff City. Westbound 54, traffic backing up quickly, according to state troopers right now for our Mid-Missouri audience.
Probably Mayhew's autonomous vehicle.
And law enforcement saying to use South Summit Drive if you're in that
Just
area.
kidding. Just kidding. Hey, let's talk more about men in girls sports. There was a very eloquent young runner, former runner, collegiate runner, who had it out with a CNN. Boy, you talk about the difference between left and right. We'll explore that in just a minute.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
of the program. At 8:08, we're going to talk with Elias Tsoupelis, who's the director of state budget and policy matters therein for the Show Me Institute, to unpack what the governor talked about. Many initiatives that will affect you should they pass, or should he find one way or another to get them done. And I got a sense he will probably find a way to get that done. In the meantime, here's Madison Kenyon, a former collegiate track runner in Idaho, on CNN. Okay, and I'm getting signals here. Okay.
Important to understand that when women compete against women, it is fair. When you put a man in women's athletics, it's not fair. And women have nowhere else to go. If you take away the fairness in our sports, we literally have nowhere else to go. But when men compete against men, it is fair. And when women compete against women, it is fair.
How simple is that? Makes sense. So she's talking with this reporter, and it goes on because she
against women, it is fair. And so in order to protect the opportunities that I had in college to get a scholarship, to get an education for all of the future generations of women, it is so important that we can recognize that women should only compete against women.
So now the host, Stephanie, in typical leftist fashion, doesn't want to talk about the facts, because Miss Kenyon had talked about how many? There's 45, 50, 75. There's an innumerable number of medals that have been won by men competing against women. We've talked about injuries before. It's just not fair.
It's not.
So, but listen to just listen, ladies and gentlemen, about the tenor of what the host says.
No, and understanding that is your position and that people share that with you. How do you see the issue of including trans people in school activities, in the community, in a way that makes them feel included? Because I will say, looking at this, you'll hear, and we had someone on the other side of this issue on the program last hour. There's certainly a feeling of being excluded. So I just wonder, from sort of your point of view, how just on a very human level.
Did you hear how many times she said the word feeling? It's all about feeling with these people. It's not about facts. It's about feeling. And feelings are important, but they need to be couched in the context of facts. Here's the way the CEO, Kristen Wagoner of the Alliance Defending Freedom, just mic dropped it.
To put there is, you said, how do they feel? Well, I want to focus on the harm to the girls, because even in the case before the Supreme Court, over 420 girls have been displaced 1,100 times and lost 57 medals to the boy at the heart of the case. So let's talk about how those 400 girls are feeling in this moment.
Bam.
Mic drop.
But what about the feelings of the girls?
It makes too much sense, Randy. And as you know, the Supreme Court heard arguments on this earlier this week. It's been a big topic of discussion. And like I said, I heard one athlete explain it like, even if they don't win, sports is so mental. And so showing up to that starting line next to someone who is physically different and superior to you, you've lost before you even start. It's demoralizing, right? And then, of course, as a mother, right, investing all that time, and as the athlete, investing all that time, all that money, all that work, to be at the top of your game and to get, outrun or outswam or whatever it might be by someone who you never stood a chance, despite how hard you worked and how good you are.
We did hear some good news from Attorney General Catherine Hanaway, though, yesterday, that if this comes down saying those states are right, they can ban men from being in women's sports, it's not going to affect our laws about transgender mutilation.
Has America been fair
Be talking about state budget, income tax cuts, perhaps a cut in a program near and dear to you as they try to trim the budget, avoid the fiscal cliff in a few years. John, the governor told us yesterday he's aiming for what, $600 million in cuts?
That was a figure he used in the State of the State address and recycled that with us yesterday
On the
and
road
admitted it could be tough.
On the road to, what, a couple trillion that need to be cut on the next few years. I mean, this is just a down payment on budget restraint.
Got real used to that COVID money.
Yeah, it's like a drug. You get the federal money. Now, more than one of our guests yesterday at the governor's prayer breakfast commented that a lot of that money was for one-time expenses, Stephanie. And, if you build a road and you widen Highway 70, you do the renovations and the modifications down in 44 in Springfield, okay, that's good. You'll have to do some maintenance, but you have to do road maintenance, whether it's 2-lane or 4-lane, and up the road. You probably have to do more chip and whatever they do, filling when the snow plows do damage and whatever. But still, I can buy that there's not much ongoing expense. How many of, quote, one-time expenses are truly one-time, though? Oh. You make a capital expense, you expand a building, you do something. Well, then you've got to heat and cool it and maintain it.
And there's ongoing maintenance expenses, obviously. But I think a lot of that was one-time expenses. But what we knew, or what we found out last year, was even the departments were coming in with requests way over, and these are ongoing expenses, way over their existing budget. I suspect they'll do the same this year. And so I think what we know is there are going to be some hurt feelings over the budgetary process this year.
Well, and I think a lot of department managers now may be quaking in their boots. Man, I think many of them welcome it, actually. But remember, Senator, so in this context, we talked with Senator Cindy O'Loughlin, who says one of her big thrusts this year is performance-based budgeting, right? Mm-hmm. So you then talk. I'm hearing in my mind's eye the governor talking about AI, and we talk with the office administration head, Ken
Zellers.
Ken Zellers, about how, he stopped by the table. We didn't get him on air, but he's going to be he's really been modernizing things tech-wise in the whole administrative infrastructure. So I could see how they'll be, without expanding too many more people, salaries, pensions, whatever, a way to have more oversight, more accountability, and at the same time say, you really don't need all that budget anymore. You can do things more efficiently now.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
So all
the biggest ongoing challenge, and we had lawmakers talk to us about it yesterday, was the antiquated nature of IT in state government, whether it's hardware, software, and all. They're working with stuff that's multiple generations out of date, a lot of agencies.
Yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts that all are going to need to come together into a vehicle of state that moves down the road and doesn't crash, right? And so everyone's going to be working together furiously. And I loved one of the lines that the governor said. It's like, yes, you get really fatigued, but you get fatigued, working hard, doing the right thing, basically. I'm paraphrasing. But that's good. That's good. So there's a lot of good stuff going on. It was good. There was a feeling of camaraderie yesterday that happens every year at the prayer breakfast, right? Mm-hmm. Where people are, there's a lot of that. And I think it was Senator, who was it that said they really appreciated when you hear people say, pray, at the church, you pray for your legislator. It's true. It's tough to walk in those shoes because you have a lot of different people tugging at your coattails.
I think it was Senator Bernskoetter, and he said, before I was elected, you go to church and they always say, pray for your elected officials. And until I was sitting in this seat, I didn't realize how much we really need the prayers and appreciate them, having to do show up and do the hard work every day.
I wonder what would happen if they only served healthy food at the Capitol.
At the state Capitol?
It's the state Capitol. Do you think that maybe things would be, minds would be clear?
No.
Tempers would be
on the rise. When I am dieting and eating salad, I'm cranky.
Oh, come on. Isn't your mind clarified?
No, I'm cranky.
How did your mind do over the holidays? Didn't you feel confused and you get bloated? You're eating all that yucky food. Maybe not you, but man, all of us who were doing that, they feel terrible. You're grumpy. No? Well, Donald Trump apparently can get away with it. and be very effective. RFK was interviewed about Donald Trump's eating habits.
Uh-oh.
Here's what happened.
Who has the most unhinged eating habits?
Drake.
The president. The interesting thing about the president is that he eats really bad food, which is McDonald's, and then, candy and Diet Coke. But he drinks the Diet Coke all times. He has the constitution of a deity. I don't know how he's alive, but he is. And he's at Mar-a-Lago. He says that the only time that he eats the junk food is when he's on the road, and he wants to eat food from big corporations because he trusts it. He doesn't want to get sick when he's on the road. But when he's at Mar-a-Lago or at the White House, he's eating really good food. So I think you get this, if you travel with him, you get this idea that he's just pumping himself full of poison all day long, and you don't know how he's walking around, much less being the most energetic person, any of us have ever met.
He's pumping himself full of poison all day long.
Drake Whitman with your Oreos and Chex Mix for breakfast.
I'm just hearing that I'm more like Trump than any of you guys.
I'm going to say, yeah.
I'm working on.
Look at his career path.
Well, and he's like, when he's on the road, he eats bad, but when he's just chilling at the White House, he eats good. He's on the road all the time. It reminds me of, have you ever heard that question? They say like a good conversation starter is like if you had a magic superpower and you could pick 5 liquids to like that were free that could shoot out of your fingers, like what would your 5 liquids be? Number 1 for Donald Trump has to be Diet Coke.
Yeah, Diet Coke.
Right?
Diet Coke.
No doubt about it.
The question is, there's always like, the rules of the game change. So it's like, can you use condiments? Some people are like really into ketchup or barbecue sauce, right? Or like, can you make yourself money? Can one of your fingers shoot out oil?
Yeah.
I think that would be on the top of Donald Trump's list too.
Yeah, but what would shoot out optimally
Gasoline.
might depend on what it's being put on, right? Like, I wouldn't generally like relish, but man, you get a roller grill dog, throw some relish and mustard on there. Oh, baby.
Nacho cheese.
Oh.
What would be on the top of your list? Coke Zero is up there for me.
Yeah, really?
Oh, yeah.
I like to go when they have it. They don't have it anymore at one of the stores I supposed to. I like the unsweetened tea and then just a little topper of the raspberry tea. And I get the little flavor of the raspberry, a little sweet, but no more.
This is why it's a good conversation starter, because I hear that from you and I'm like, okay, we can't be friends. If you picked unsweetened tea, I'd be like, yeah, no.
Yeah, but I don't like all the high fructose corn syrup because all calories are not created equal, really. Your body metabolizes them differently. So if you balance your carb and fat and protein macros, especially when it comes to the carbs and the fats, if you eat all your carbs and fats as ultra-processed junk, it's going to mess you up. I talked about how Oprah is blaming she's a victim. She's a victim of her obesity genes. That's not true. You may have to play that hand a little bit different. But, if you eat all this ultra-processed food, it messes up the signaling in your body. That's why when you drink a fully loaded sugar drink, you want more junk stuff because your mind's not getting the signals that, hey, I've had calories, I don't need any more. Your mind's blind to that. And it's going, I need more calories.
So then Oprah blames her weight issues on this gene. Does Donald Trump have some sort of superhuman gene that allows him to fill his body full of poison and still like be energetic?
Well, there's no doubt that family history is an extremely strong gravitational influence on your health. There's no doubt about that.
And lifestyle, right? Lifestyle and culture. I think the speed with which you run your life and eat. I mean, I went to a conference once, and they had a breakfast, and it was in Germany.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were bringing out like bread and pretzels and cheese and like sausages, and I was like, there is no way I could eat a pretzel and cheese at 7 a.m. and drink a beer and then go sit in a conference. I'm going to need to take a nap, but that's just like they can handle it, right?
Well, minus the beer, if you're going to eat the calories. For God's sake, don't do it right before you go to bed. I mean, you're just asking for obesity.
Do it at 7 a.m.
and insulin resistance. But I'd like to do the experiment at the Capitol this year. Maybe we can get agreement.
Yeah, let's make them all angrier by forcing them to eat salads.
No, this is a different lifestyle habit.
Oh, okay.
This is a different one. I think the lights should go out. The electricity should be turned off around 10 o'clock, maybe 10:30.
No mow ledge after dark.
Get some sleep. Get some sleep. You may think that you need to stay up later to do more work because there's so many bills unfinished and unperfected and whatever. If you get some sleep, you'll think clearer. You'll be more efficient. You'll be on the top of your game. But if you think, I got to work hard, and you only get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep, you're going to be in a fog, walk around a fog the next day. How can you make good decisions for we the people? What do you say, Drake?
I just wanted to go back. Do you bring up the 5-finger superpower thing to like everybody?
No.
Because that's the most millennial thing I've ever heard. Yeah, it's a real icebreaker.
Yeah, I've never heard of that icebreaker.
Really?
I'm sorry.
I think it's a fascinating
5-finger death
question.
punch, right?
I think you can learn a lot about somebody. With Randy's unsweetened tea, insert eye roll here.
So you meet someone that you've never seen. You're at a cocktail
but
party.
I do think it's a fun...
So tell me, if you could shoot magic liquid out of your fingers, what would it be? Really? I'm going the other way.
And
I'm running.
I think it's a fun debate.
They'd say gin and make me another martini, would you?
I mean, would you rather me show up to a cocktail party and be like, the latest decision out of SCOTUS is blah, blah, blah? No, you want to talk about what liquids you shoot out your finger.
There you go. Does the spidey sense come along with that would be my question.
Holy cow. That took some gummies to get to that one, Steph. I'm telling you.
It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Try it.
No, I will.
I will.
Okay. I'm not going to.
Beer, you could have mustard. Some people are like obsessed with mustard.
I'm
curious,
mustard.
Drake, what would you pick?
Ranch dressing.
Ranch. Oh, don't bring that up, Stephanie. That was in confidence.
I don't know, John, how about you?
Caldy's coffee.
Yeah. At the right time of day, maybe some very old bourbon or scotch. Really good stuff. Just a little bit. Just a little taste.
Yeah.
You have an unlimited supply.
You got 5 fingers.
You know what no one's said? Water.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, my wife would. I'd like some water with a spritz of lime in it. Yeah. She's so healthy. She gives me this, and I'm like, please. No, it's good. I like that. Try the lifestyle thing. Do all those little things. Sleep, stress management, good nutrition, little exercise. Just drop and do 10 push-ups 5 times a day. Nothing more. That's all. Walk around the block during lunch. Tell me how your next day goes.
Or just be more like Donald Trump and pump your body full of poison all day long.
You don't have his genes. John, what's up?
My favorite snack has 6 little feet.
But do they shoot out of your fingers? We will see.
It's Wake Up Miss
except for this.
Imagine a low-calorie, protein-packed noodle that evokes the butteriness of French cheeses. The good news is you don't need to book a table at a new bistro to try it. Mealworms are a contender for like one of my most favorite insects, according to Carlos from Chicago. And he says the most favorite thing about them is the flavor, a lot like buttered popcorn. Carlos, who's 26, is scarfing down heaps of live mealworms and roaches on TLC's My Strange Addiction this week. He also swears that the inside of the roaches tastes just like custard.
Oh.
Doesn't make them dirt cheap. He's shown on the show having to shell out $8 for a bag of mealworms and roaches at his neighborhood reptile specialty store. He tries to convince a nurse prac that his addiction's A-OK because he says 70% of the world's nations consume insects. She tells him the problem is when you eat these bugs live, you're contaminating your body with active live parasitic and bacterial infections. Heck, anybody who's been to Tijuana has been offered up the chupalinas.
What's that?
At the bar. That's the way too spicy to eat toasted grasshoppers that they have in a little bowl on the bar with con your mezcal.
Woo.
No, thank you. This is reminding me of a scene that I saw in the latest Zootopia movie. Again, if you haven't seen it, you should really go see it. But it's kind of this, the whole movie centers kind of on this tension, and they had kind of like exiled the reptiles from Zootopia. So the officer, what is it, Judy and Nick, they go out to talk to the reptiles. So they're in a bar with the reptile folks, and they serve them up a giant bowl of mealworms and yucky bugs or whatever, and the other I think it was the beaver says like, yeah, you got to like show respect and eat these things or whatever. They both eat one, and then the reptile they're talking to is like, ha ha, you ate it, that's disgusting. And they were like, oh please.
They were baited.
And it was real nasty.
Isn't it mealworms that our ice fishermen use? I don't know if there's going to be an ice fishing season this year. But I think isn't it mealworms, Drake, when you ice fish? I know many of you out there ice fish. I've done it a few times, have some fun with that once in a while. What?
Many of us ice fish.
I love to ice fish, yeah.
If you've ice fished, please
that's
text
the way
us,
I start my conversations. Hey, tell me about your... Well, yeah, that's when I start my conversations.
You don't think there's going to be ice fishing this season? Just because
Tell me,
so
what
warm?
do you use when you ice fish?
I remember when I was a kid going up to Minnesota, and the couple times we did it with relatives up there. I think it was just like shiners, minnows or something.
Yeah, it's fun. Little tiny jigs, and you put I think it's a mealworm you put on there. And then you have special equipment that you have a little indicator when the fish bites. You drill a hole in the ice. It's fun. Do you ever see what's it called? Grumpy Old Men?
We have different definitions.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, great movie. Great movie about ice fishing, all centered around ice fishing. 573-874-9390. Tell us about your favorite ice fishing bait here on Wake Up Missouri when we're covering the important topics of the day.
There you go.
I have a really funny story about mealworms. We feed our lizard mealworms. That's the main thing that you feed them. And my mom accidentally changed my her address for Amazon and sent it to my apartment when I was living here in Columbia.
Ooh.
And it was a box of mealworms. It was so freaky.
How'd they taste?
I don't know.
Oh, well, I thought, starving college student. You never know. All right. Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk with Elias Tsapelis about the state budget. He's from Show Me Institute. We'll unpack that for you because it does impact you. Stay tuned.
Addiction.
We are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not.
Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell.
I'm passing on this race with zero sadness and zero regret. I ran for the job to do the job.
The Zimmer News Team.
And thank God President Trump and the DOJ are now on the scene.
And now introducing your host, Randy Tobler.
Since fiscal year 22, if you leave with nothing, please remember this. Over 3,400 new budget items have been added at the cost of nearly $13 billion in new general revenue spending. Again, that's just general revenue. This does not include federal dollars. All of this demonstrates the historic imbalance we now must fix.
That was Governor Mike Keogh laying down some law at his state address just on Tuesday. And boy, he was forceful, he was vociferous, he was doubling down on that with us yesterday. We have got to get our fiscal house in order. Joining us now is Elias Chapelas. He's the Director of State Budget and Fiscal Policy at the Show Me Institute. And Elias, we have a lot to talk about, but all of the legislators that we talked to yesterday, I think the word is loud and clear. We got to do something lest we fall off the cliff in a couple of years. Welcome into the program.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. And yeah, I'm certainly excited that there's finally some talk about this imbalance, because Missouri's spending's been unsustainable for years now. So I'm glad they're, talking big about finally addressing it.
We heard yesterday about how I think many of the guests that we had were talking about how these were one-time spending, one-time projects that were on the wings of federal money. And, not too much. Well, that's not what the governor said. He said 3,400 new items at, $16 billion in general revenue. How does that square up? Where do we stand?
Well, how it always tends to work with the federal government is whenever they send you some temporary money, what might start like it is a one-time expenditure, turns into a permanent obligation. So, if you look back just before 2020, before the COVID pandemic, Missouri's budget was about $27 billion in total. We had about $10 billion in general revenue. And today, the governor's budget is over $54 billion, and we have over $16 billion in general revenue. So, it's an enormous change that has happened, and it can't all be one-time expenditures getting us there.
Talk to us about the governor used the figure $600 million in cuts. What's that going to mean for the average Missouri taxpayer out there?
Well, I haven't been able to make it through all of the governor's cuts, but, one of the things the governor did mention is a big sort of difference out there between, what some people call a cut and what other people call a cut. So sometimes it's called a cut if the governor or the government just spends the same amount of money as last year because it's not getting the new amount of money that the program or the government says they need. And so in that case, I don't necessarily think it's a cut. But, the government has to get back on the track that it, is sustainable. And frankly, right now, we're spending faster than our revenues are growing. I think the state auditor released a report, a few weeks ago saying, that if we don't get this under control, it's going to be a disaster. And so, it's time to start looking at things. And there are plenty of things that, won't necessarily be a big, won't necessarily be an enormous disadvantage to Missourians. And at the end of the day, the biggest driver of this stuff is Medicaid. And there's very few, if any, cuts to the Medicaid program right now.
Now, the governor's also been talking about eliminating the income tax. It's an issue that Show Me has been covering for a very long time. Different states that don't have an income tax have different tax structures. In Missouri, how do we go about replacing some of that revenue to the state? What does that look like to everyday Missourians?
Well, I think the first thing people need to realize is that Missouri's tax code has just gotten really out of date. So our 50 years ago, Missouri's sales tax system, you were paying sales tax on about 2/3 or even more of what you were buying because we are a goods-based economy. Today, now people's consumption is about 2/3 services, and we're not collecting any sales tax revenue on that. So there basically, as the economy has changed, Missouri's tax system hasn't changed, and states across the country are realizing that. So states across the country are expanding their sales tax basis to cover other things. And, they're also lowering their income tax. So it's partly a thing about competition, getting people to move to Missouri because we have the best tax environment, but also kind of modernizing our sales tax system. Because frankly, right now, if you go to Barnes & Noble and buy a book, you're paying a sales tax on that. If I just buy a book for my Kindle sitting at my house, I'm not paying a sales tax on that. And so it's kind of evening the playing field, modernizing the tax code to capture some of these services or digital goods and, keeping Missouri competitive with the rest of the country.
So right now, if you go to your doctor's office, if you can get in and get an appointment, you pay your copay, and if you don't pay any sales tax. People don't see their doctor enough and when they should for preventative stuff anyway. I can tell you that. Is that going to be a disincentive if doctor's visits start getting taxed?
Well, the governor did mention in his State of the State that he's not interested in looking at health care, and that certainly is a big area. But there's tons of areas that out there of types of goods and services that people aren't paying sales tax on now. And we also do have to remember that if you are paying a sales tax on something that you weren't previously, while that may be a tax you're paying today, you aren't paying an income tax. The idea would be that on the flip side, you aren't paying an income tax. So it, basically works out. It's just something that, there's so many different things to look at that it's kind of hard to, say right now what services the governor is looking at. But all across the country, states are trying to, modernize their sales tax system. And Missouri does need to catch up, and digital goods and stuff like that are really the first place to start.
That's Elias Chapelas. He's the director of state budget and fiscal policy at the Show Me Institute. So the Republican conference, according to one report and per Senator Tony Lukemeyer, back in the fall, talked about the importance, their priority, top priority was real estate property tax reform. Wow. How does that stay in the same basket of tax cuts as the income tax? I mean, you got to pay the bills even if you reduce the amount of bills to be paid.
Yeah, well, and a big issue with, all tax reform really is, when you're talking about the income tax, you're talking about the state government. And when you're talking about property taxes, you're talking about the local government. And one thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is that Missouri, when you combine state and local taxes, we're actually very reliant on the sales tax right now. Local governments in Missouri are very reliant on the sales tax. And so, when you start looking at getting rid of the income tax, and what that means in terms of what we're doing with the sales tax, that can have an impact on local governments. But if you start looking at expanding the sales tax base, collecting the sales tax on, different items that aren't collecting sales tax right now, that's additional money going to lower governments or local governments. And so the idea would be then I think that would give you some room to then let local governments reduce their their taxes on property or other things like that, or really just give local governments a chance to kind of look at things and see what, constituents think are the best way to fund their services.
What grade do you give the governor on his State of the State address when it comes to the budget?
Well, I have a hard time giving a grade because, there have been multiple years now where we kind of had some talk that, we're going to finally address some budgetary things, a balanced budget. Missouri's Constitution does require a balanced budget, but I think that it's a very good start. And I think that, the other thing that the governor announced is Missouri Great initiative, getting people to go in and look at how to find, efficiencies, ways to cut the budget, different ways to improve Missouri's government. I think those are a good place to start. But at the end of the day, the spending problem Missouri has is a really big one. And so it's also a tough one to tackle. So I can't really grade it until, we really see the budget signed at the end of the year. But I'm very optimistic, more optimistic than I've been in a few years on the topic.
Yeah, well, I thought you might be. I was really buoyed by his, I give him an A on those fiscal restraint on the spending, like we got to reel it in. And I thought that was great. And of course, changing up the tax code. I thought it was pretty good. But I know you have to talk with the governor and Show Me talks with the governor. So I know you got to be careful. Don't want to give him a grade because, I get it. All right, let's talk. John Marsh joins Stephanie Bell and Randy Tobler and Drake Whitman talking with Elias Chapelas.
Yeah, Elias, is this the year with all these budget challenges that they need to seriously address maybe rewriting the education funding formula?
Well, I think it's something that, has been needed for a while. It's an enormous increase every single year that, Missouri's looking at. And I do think there's a task force looking at it. But, when you look at the budget every year, it's especially when revenues aren't growing as much as they are right now and what is expected in the future. When the budget gets to the governor or the legislature, it's basically like, okay, well, 40% of it goes to Medicaid, another 30% of it goes to education, and then, figure out how to fund everything else. And so, with all the issues that education is facing and all the room for improvement out there, I think it's a great time with the One Big Beautiful Bill to look at Medicaid and, look at the funding formula. And if we really want to right-size government, those two things are going to have to be the place you start.
Well, we'll be watching it with you at the Show Me Institute, and I know we'll be touching base as these details emerge and you're able to analyze them and make some projections and see how things go. So I hope you'll stay in touch with us as that develops. Elias Tsapelis, thanks so much for your insight and your expertise. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
All right. It'll be interesting as he, and Elias knows probably as much or more about this than anyone as far as having been there, done that, and now analyzing it as well. So we'll be staying in touch with him and others as we figure out a very complex matrix in a changing world. I agree. I mean, boy, I didn't realize the magnitude of the shift from where we're buying and what we're buying, from goods to services. We've become that service economy. I didn't realize it was like a tectonic shift like that. Let's come back and talk about the markets, see what the markets think about this 21st century economy on this Thursday morning. Don't forget that Gary Nolan follows us, and it's a Think Tank Thursday on Gary Nolan. And, of course, Mike Murphy, I'm sure he'll be talking about what happens there at the, lockdown, whatever it was, a security situation in North Columbia yesterday, as well as other things for you Eagle listeners. He's with the Eagle Eye Drive at 5 later on. Stay tuned for the Market Report.
It's Wake Up Miss.
Thursday morning bell just rang. What's going on, Stephanie?
It was ugly yesterday. We had the NASDAQ down 1%, the S&P down 0.53%, the Dow down 0.09%. As we look at the sectors, the biggest losers were in technology and consumer discretionary. We did have big gains yesterday in energy and in consumer staples. As we look at the futures today, we're hoping for a bounce back, and we're seeing, yes, everything is in the green. NASDAQ quite significantly in the green. The futures are up more than 1%. Now, Randy, you played some audio earlier. What was the question to RFK? Who has the most deranged eating habits?
The most unhinged.
Unhinged.
Yeah.
All right. And RFK said without equivocation, certainly the president, that he was fueling his body with poison, and specifically mentioned his love for diet soda and McDonald's. And so I thought we'd bring some McDonald's news to you this morning. Apparently, the McDonald's CEO gives out predictions every year about what will be the latest for the food industry. And he's touting his success because apparently last year he predicted 4 things and got 3 of them right. I think one of them was sauces. He said sauces would be really a big deal, AI would be a big deal, and protein would be a big deal. Those are pretty slam dunk predictions. But for this year, he has a new 3 that he said will be a big focus for food trends in 2026. You'll like to hear this, Randy. Fiber. And you said you were frustrated with the new inverted food pyramid, that there wasn't a significant enough focus on fiber.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of that. The first thing you see with your Western eyes reading from left to right are meat, and over on the right are some vegetables and fruits. And so that's okay. I mean, we'll see how it works out.
He thinks fiber will be a big focus in food offerings in 2026. He also said the combination of sweet and spicy. And this kind of goes along with his sauces thing from last year, in that a lot of places are unveiling this like sweet and spicy combo, different sauces. He said it's very popular, especially amongst the youths.
Would that be like a Fireball liquor? Yeah.
In like mixed in with like what? Hot cider?
Hot honey.
With your old fashioned?
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of that. Hot honey on like a pizza and that kind of thing. So I'm down for sweet and spicy. That would be cool. And then he said beverage innovation with Gen Z. A lot of people are doing dry January. Gen Z's drinking less and less. We're seeing a lot more expanded mocktail menus. And, these machines now that they have in the fast food restaurants allow you to kind of personalize your drinks. Certain folks have been introducing even new beverage options, these like refreshers and other types of non-soda, non-alcohol options. And so he thinks we're going to see continued innovation in the beverage space. What do you think? You got any other food predictions for 2026?
I think it's going to be fiber and protein. I mean, it's already protein, right? But I think those two in combo, how they figure out how to do that still make it palatable.
It was Chipotle that's introducing the meat cup, which is just like straight protein. And that's a new offering for this year. So I think protein's going to be on the list too, Randy.
I still think the biggest thing in the fast food industry, go into any of them now, it's kiosks and AI.
Well, we're getting there, John, because Fox Business also put out a report about the fast food industry adopting AI, and some of the, I really hate ordering at the kiosk. I just do. It takes forever. They're trying to sell you. You're like, I just want a cheeseburger. They're like, would you like another cheeseburger? No, I would have put 2 if I wanted 2 cheeseburgers. Anyway,
hot health tip. Speaking about kiosks now, with influenza going around. After you order at the kiosk, go to the bathroom and wash your hands.
That is
for
fair.
sure.
Also, but I did like this. They said McDonald's is introducing an AI-powered accuracy scale. And so based on your order, they know how much your bag should weigh. And so before they put it out the window, they put it, and it like alerts you if maybe an item is missing. I love this innovation. This is good.
I like that.
I still don't like the kiosks, but the making sure you don't drive away without, making sure you do drive away with all the things you actually paid for.
No, that's
really important.
That's very, very cool. Hey, for the Columbia City Council and Mayor Buffalo, you need to take a leering trip to Luxembourg. I'll explain why when we come back. Well, whether you live in Springfield or I don't see much in Jefferson City, but certainly in Columbia and maybe some other places. But I mean, those are the three hot spots for the two hot spots. John, hot spot in Jefferson City for begging, sitting on the corner in front of a store with people, harassing you as you walk by and, asking
see them a lot by the big box store. How's that sound?
Okay, the big box store. All right. And I think can we all agree it's annoying, and can we all agree it just doesn't give a good appearance to the city for visitors or would-be maybe investors or business people or, well, certainly business people wanting to move to a community. They see that and they go, I don't know, this is not good. My customers are going to feel uncomfortable around here.
I'm amazed more of the panhandlers don't get hit by cars.
Yeah.
Either accidentally or, unfortunately, maybe intentionally.
We were walking downtown in Columbia a few weeks ago on a Friday afternoon. Yeah, Thursday, Friday afternoon. Picked something up there from one of the retailers, and both on the way to and the way from where we parked to that store, the same guy. I mean, clearly he didn't remember that he'd already hit us up once, and I said no, get a job. And on the way back, I got the same deal, and it's annoying. I don't like it.
Had he gotten a job in the interim?
Yeah, I think maybe that was his job. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
So, well, I don't know. Maybe he got on one of the job sites and had one in the meantime. But so I think that, and we also know that Mayor Buffalo likes to take trips abroad to learn for leering experiences, right? She has to go leering, leer from other.
She travels quite a bit.
Right? A lot of leering going on. Well, the mayor of Luxembourg says that a begging ban in Luxembourg's capital city has, that's the capital city of Luxembourg, is Luxembourg. It's a small country. That this, the capital has fulfilled its purpose in, really almost eliminating what she calls begging gangs and individuals doing that and harassing people. He said that as someone who lives in the city, she observed, quote, the aggressive behavior as one experienced it in the past is seen much less frequently today. She said it was never about targeting people who are doing badly and who occasionally ask for money. I mean, if you're walking down the street and someone says, hey, you got a nickel for a cup of coffee? Well, now that would be a $5 bill for a cup of coffee. But she said the fact is that in addition to aggressive begging, we also have people who behave in public spaces in such a way that they significantly impair the quality of life for others by making noise, shouting, drinking alcohol, or taking drugs. What a novel thought. So now a United Nations report last year criticized the legislation, called it part of a growing set of repressive measures adopted at local and national levels. So it seems like in Luxembourg it works. So maybe the city council and Mayor Buffalo and the mayor in Springfield and their city council can take a leering experience and go to Luxembourg. What do you think, John?
Boy, I don't know. Might be worth a shot, but I know, Columbia's got its problems, and homelessness is rampant in Springfield.
It's a matter of liberty, say proponents of letting people panhandle and do what they want. For pure and traditional values-driven libertarians, they would say, wait a minute, your liberty stops where my liberty begins. And propriety matters. I think that's what libertarians would see. You'll have to ask Gary Nolan when he's on at 9. But, this is an example where, now this is according to the mayor. I don't know, maybe she's making it up. But the mayor of the city says we did a ban. Oh, the ban was challenged in the court and it's all messed up. So I don't think it's an official ban right now and been rarely enforced. But the fact it's there and the city fathers and this woman say, hey, don't go there. We're not going to allow this. And look what happens. When the tone is set, different behavior results on the part of elected officials. We'll see where that comes out. John, some new news and update from Jefferson City on this guy who stabbed his wife and murdered her, right? Or stabbed a woman and murdered
children.
her.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Yeah, we've been checking out our news partner ABC 17 reports that the man Malang Yan Akbari, who was accused of killing his wife at a Jefferson City home earlier this week. Now the pastor of his church says he was a translator for the U.S. military
from where?
Afghanistan.
Oh, Afghanistan! Wow, wouldn't have thought about that in a million years, would you?
And asked for asylum here in the U.S. and got it.
Thanks, Joe Biden. Well, I don't know whether it was under Biden. We don't know.
Yeah.
Sad.
Well, whoever it was under, shame on them. And I'm glad that Donald Trump, as you reported earlier, Stephanie, has put a pause on visas for how many countries?
75 countries, including, and not as a result of violence, although I think before that had been one of the reasons for the initial pause. This one is said to be because these countries are overusing public assistance programs. Relying too heavily on welfare. The countries include Brazil, Russia, and Somalia.
Buried in one of the stories about this, I saw that they are brewing plans or implementing plans that if you're applying for, entry into this country, I don't know whether it was for, green card or the visa thing. I think it was for green card type status or asylum. They're going to look at your intent of using social services, the likelihood you're going to do that.
Well, I think the data that came out in the congressional hearings and the stuff that's going on in Minnesota was just staggering. Not only, and I think people understand, if you're escaping your country and you're in a really bad place and you need to get out, and you do, and then once you're here, you need a couple years to rebuild your life. But the data that was coming out was 60% of the folks coming in were on are on welfare when they get here, and 20 years later they're still on welfare.
Yeah.
And I think people are thinking that's not why we're doing this.
Well, and the Congress,
it's unsustainable.
Right, the congressman came out, I think it was on Tuesday in those hearings, and said that, he asked to an official from Minnesota, do you know the percentage of Somalis that are, been here a while and are still on this? And it was like overwhelming majorities, right? They're still on the public dole. The public dole was never meant to be permanent subsistence. It was meant to be a hand up, not a perpetual hand out. I think that probably would accrue to Americans, too, to our citizens, right? No one wants to be. And I don't think people really, for the most part, want to be on welfare. I think people have become generationally accustomed to it. Is that fair? And it's not fair to them because it really helps suppress the human soul in its soaring nature to achieve and aspire and overcome. I mean, I think that we don't do people favors when we make it too easy to get help when you maybe could do some for yourself. On the other hand, if you can't do for yourself, I think we'd all agree there's a place for charity, whether it's public or private.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of needs here at home, and that's what the State Department said yesterday. They're bringing an end to the abuse of America's immigration system by those who would extract wealth from the American people. Mm-hmm. Because the bottom line is that 60 or 70% of these Somalis that we've learned are perpetually on public assistance. Those are your tax dollars going from your hardworking day going to the government and then being redirected to some of these folks.
I thought it was interesting, too, looking at some of the Somali numbers that the feds put out, that they said the vast majority of them took part in the refugee resettlement programs that the feds run, but were not here asking for asylum. And I think the public perception would be, as rough as a place as Somalia is, you would think the vast majority of them were asking for it, but they don't.
And other countries on the list include Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Egypt, Nigeria, Thailand, Yemen.
I don't know. I saw another of the series of viral videos from that fellow and his friend David, or his we don't know if it's a relative. Now they're looking at a new category of disruption. So what we've had healthcare, we've had food, we've had home health services. What else? We've had the daycare. And I saw another one the other night. I don't remember. It's just one after another. And you gotta ask yourself, at what point is there a way to vet incoming immigrants through the legal system as to their intention to assimilate? And maybe should we even vet them as to the nature of the cultures from where they come from? Because we're hearing that, in a lot of these cultures, we heard about the Brazilian way, where they just sort of wink at the law, and there's this under the radar culture where people just sort of do transactions and things and maybe avoid the government regulations and oversight and enforcement. Well, if the way in these tribal and third world countries is to bribe officers and to cheat and to steal and to just fraud is a way of life, do we really want that culture infused into the American culture? What's the likelihood they're going to be infused by American culture and persuaded to go the other way? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the difficulty is there probably are legit, even amongst these cultures where that is a prominent part of their culture, there are, legitimate people for other reasons who need to get out or want to get out and who, and who have shown. I mean, we have a lot of our CEOs, a lot of our entrepreneurs, like we have a lot of immigrants who've come to America and done wonderful, great things, assimilated and and adopted capitalism, better than some of us who were born here.
True. This is
and
true.
so how do you set up a system that can vet that number of people, but do it on a person by person basis? That's really not only difficult, but also expensive.
Yeah.
Well, and the other side of it is forcing cultural assimilation is unconstitutional in the United States. Can't force anybody to assimilate. They can strongly suggest and all that.
Oh, no, I'm not saying
and naturalizing people and getting their citizenship papers, but you can't legally force them to assimilate.
But you can monitor them. No?
Well, we're not doing a very good job of that right now.
Okay.
And that's the problem.
Good
I know
luck.
a lot of colleagues in the doctor sphere who are absolute A1 American citizens, or they're not citizens yet, but they want to be, or they're here on a visa or whatever. Fabulous docs. You see a lot of that. So it's a tough one. I guess at the end of the day, whether you're an American citizen, a green card holder, and a legal immigrant, we have rules of the road. Follow them. just follow them. When we come back, some leftovers. And you've heard of spilled milk and you've heard of sour grapes. But what about sour milk? We'll talk about that when we come back.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
Wake Up Missouri. Thanks for being with us. You know, those of you who love your milk and the whole milk haven't had that for years probably, right? Well, the new food guidelines that came out last week, they say, hey, whole milk's good, and it's true. The saturated fat in whole milk is a lot different than the saturated fat in a marbled steak, although marbled steaks are okay. You just have to limit that. So they now are saying in schools, you know, whole milk is the game. And yesterday, Donald Trump, maybe it was the day before, but he had a little session in the White House. They were in the Oval Office with the dignitaries and people from the USDA, and RFK, of course, was there, and kids, because kids are going to start getting this in school. And then he started talking to the reporters. He's got a gallon, a glass bottle gallon of milk. Oh, what a beautiful thing. Remember the milk in the glass bottle? It just tastes better from a glass bottle, I think. Here we go. Here is what he said to the reporters.
Thank you, Bobby. We have some milk here. It's been sitting here for 5 days, so it's from the original bottle, and I brought it so the press can have some. You can swig it all out of it. Remember the old days when we were kids, everybody shared a bottle? Today we tend not to do that, but if you'd like to, if you trust the person that you're drinking after, it's right here. It's yours, okay? It's semi-fresh, 5-6 days old. Thank you. So, Ben Carson.
Yes, he says it's 5-6 days old. You can swig it and share the bottle. Always the entertainer is Donald Trump. What do you have, Stephanie?
Well, I saw this article out of Jefferson City, and I am pleased in that Cole County approved a leash ordinance at all 3 county parks. And I've said it before, but I think if you're in a public place and you've got animals, they should be leashed. As someone who does not like to be accosted by animals, not knowing, you know, I love when they're like running at you, looking all mean, like they're going to bite you. And they're like, it's nice. I don't care. Like, I don't.
So let me ask you this.
I don't want to find out.
We live in a subdivision. It's a loop. Okay. So there's a loop. So I walk around the loop a couple times with the dog. Now, remember, our dog's blind. Well, I mean, almost blind. He can see probably light and very blurry things, but he's not a predator dog. Simba, the wonder dog, you know? And but he's about 50% pit bull, and a little bit of the rest is German Shepherd and forget what else. Oh, I know, Labrador Retriever. Okay, so I walk with him, and I've got him in a harness with the leash, you know.
Good.
But he likes to just stay around me and just stay with me because he's got to listen to my verbal cues. Like, come here, Simba. So he follows me. He listens to me walk, so he's following that cue, probably a lot of nose cues. Once in a while, he's distracted by other dogs' leavings, you know. But he's not one that's going to run after you, Stephanie, because he can't see you that well. I mean, he wouldn't see you coming the other way. So I keep him on leash when there's no one around, no cars around. But when I see a car coming or a person coming, I clip the leash on. Would I be in violation of the Stephanie leash law with a blind dog?
Just leash him all the time.
But dogs need to be free. Drake, would that be an exception? Could I get a waiver for the leash law? I need to ask Mayor Ron Fitzwater about that. If I could get a leash
I think
waiver.
it's a county thing. It's
a county thing.
But there is a leash law in the city, most cities.
Well, Mike Bernsketter's running for county commissioner, right?
Yes, he is.
Well, I may or may not support him depending on whether I get a waiver for my blind dog on the leash law. I don't know.
I kind of agree with Stephanie. Keep the dog on a leash. I mean,
it's so restrictive.
Yeah, if he's off your property, especially, because then you're liable.
Yeah, and also, you know, if it's a blind dog, you don't want it running into a tree or something.
My wife freaks out.
That's mean.
We go to the. What do you have? You have leftover?
That was my leftover. The leash law. I'm very excited.
Okay,
bonus points to Cole County for.
So you're happy
enacting the leash law.
All right.
Yes.
And Stephanie says I must keep my blind dog on a leash.
Please.
That's cruel and unusual treatment.
You can carry it around in like a kangaroo
pouch. You have no compassion for the blind, I can tell. All right, we'll be back on tomorrow's Feel Good Friday.
Bye.